Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and it is the 2nd of April, 2025. It occurs to me that I'm coming upon almost a year of doing these live streams, not on YouTube, but between Instagram and here, that I think May of last year is when I started doing a daily live stream, or mostly daily. And yeah, it's kind of interesting that we've gotten this far with it. So we'll have to see when we get around to anniversary time with that. It's a lovely day here, and good morning, afternoon. Hello, Alistair. Good to see you. Yeah, it's definitely it's a pretty day here. It's getting to be more. Good morning, cute sweater. Oh, thank you, Kathleen. Yes, this is actually one of those. I forget what they call them. It's like a hoodie type thing, but I can't. There's a name for it, and it's not coming into my mind. But yeah, I've had this one for a few years. So felt like wearing that. Usually in the morning, I have some kind of cardigan, or not cardigan really, like a pullover, like a jumper pullover that I'll wear, which I wear instead. I usually have another shirt underneath it. Like I'm wearing it kind of as a, as you would wear something, that you might button up, or like a coat, but because it does get chilly in here in the mornings. But yeah, today I just figured do something a little different. Yeah, it's a pretty day here today. We're getting more tempered, I guess, for April, because normally the temperatures are like around the 50s, which I guess if we're talking in centigrade terms, we're talking like between like 10, 11, 12, maybe in that realm, is pretty normal for this time of year. And yeah, so it's going kind of, but I think we're going to have a couple warm days again. I don't know. April's a very strange month with regard to that. But it is a nice day. It's another busy day for me because I've got back-to-back, got to do university prep. I've got grading to do. I have, what else am I doing this morning? Oh, I have an appointment with somebody at 10, and then I have to meet somebody at 11:30 up in Washington. Then I got to get all my shopping done for the week, and I got to try to get all my laundry done as well before tomorrow, because tomorrow I got to go back and teach in person again. It's like the time's flying, and I've got to go to the city on Friday. Yeah, and I just posted something on Instagram, and Alex is on. Good morning. Suda's on. Good morning. Good to see all you guys. Yeah, I'm going to be. I think I posted something to Instagram last night, and I think I'm going to email. I'm going to just send out my usual email to people who normally participate in classes. And again, there's no obligation to participate if you're not available. But I am doing an astrology 101 this weekend. And I'm also doing, which I'm already prepped for. And I'm also doing, the following weekend, I'm going to have the dream workshop, which a number of people have asked about. The 19th, I have to do Reiki master work. And then the 26th, I'm going to be doing, that's when we'll do the tarot workshop for the month. Because right now I'm just about keeping up with the workshops. I do have clients who come to the house on Sunday. So yeah, so it's kind of there's just a lot going on right now. And I'm trying to finish an editorial project for someone, the person I'm meeting with Friday, actually, in the city. So I've been kind of working that in as well. So yeah, it's just an incredibly busy time right now. I think what was kind of on my mind this morning was the idea of the sword of Damocles, right? And hello. The sword of Damocles, which is kind of like, I feel like there's, you know what it is? I think a lot of times when we can't relax, I always talk about how we should slow down, take our time, relax, and so forth. I think part of the problem that we have with that is the idea that in trying to relax, we know that we have things that we have to do. If you know that you have deadlines or things that have to be done, or appointments or things that you are coming up, it's very hard to relax. And good morning. Hello, Kelsey. Good to see you. It's yeah, we have this this whole thing of that's kind of how I think I feel these days. It's kind of, I feel almost like yesterday was a day off for me, technically speaking. I did, my sister and I usually go walking and stuff, and just to be able to get out. But it was quite cold yesterday. But I found the rest of the day was just like, I got the podcast finished. So people who are Katonia followers, the podcast will be up. I think by noon today, because I like to give Patreon like 24 hours of early access before I post it. And I will be doing the live stream at 3 today as well. So that's all done and ready. That's all ready to go. I just have to hit publish in 2 different places. So that's all done. But I was working on that yesterday and just trying to catch up with a lot of other things. So it's just it's an extremely busy time right now. And I think just having this other class just kind of is adding a lot to that. And I don't know if this is part of Mercury retrograde or what it is, but I just seem like I'm getting mysteriously, like, people are kind of reappearing and starting to send me lots and lots of messages. And when I say to them, yeah, well, I'm really quite busy right now, then it becomes like, yeah, okay, you know, whatever, like, I'm busy too. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm just getting message after message after message. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I don't have time for standard chit chat. If you have something you want to ask me, like, it was fine. But I don't, if we're going to get into, you know, I don't have, you know, everybody who knows me knows that sometimes they'll message me and it could take me a while to get back because it's just right now. And when people do that, I don't know. I think in some cases, and by the way, this has nothing to do with anybody who's normally on this live stream or who participates. It's not anybody in that group. But it's just, there's just somebody who just kind of reappeared in there, and it's almost like, do you recognize that I am not, you know, when I say to you, I'm busy, are you actually listening to me, or do you just not believe that I'm busy? Do you think I'm just making it up? I don't know. Maybe some people think that, but it gets back to kind of what we were saying yesterday about not taking the world personally. So, yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, today I was just thinking about that, though, the fact that, this is almost kind of a 5 of Wands energy, right? The things that can pull us away and that can distract us from what it is that we're actually trying to do. And for me, you know, I like to focus on one thing at a time. I like to, if I'm going to answer somebody, I don't want to just, you know, I don't want to just be giving, I don't like to do things half-assed. I guess that's what it comes down to. So that then requires a little bit more time and a little bit more effort to do things. But I think, yeah, especially with this new class that I'm teaching, it does feel like the sword of Damocles. I feel like every day I'm like, okay, you think like, okay, I've cleared my plate. Here's all the things I needed to get done today. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I still have to prep for this. And I know, and because it's something new, it's not like I just have notes that I can pull out and just show up. Because most of the time when I teach, that's what I do. If it's something I've taught before, it's generally something either I know like that. And it's not like this isn't a subject I don't know, but trying to follow what the university protocol is and the rubrics and all that kind of stuff. It just, it makes, it's an extra layer of things that I have to get used to. And I always feel like I'm not giving myself enough time to prep for those things. So anyway, that's just blah, blah. But I know, I feel like my energy has been a little more frenetic lately because I'm like, okay, I've got, I was up till about 10 o'clock last night doing some stuff. And yeah, and today will be a busy day, but I'm hoping that Friday I will have a reasonably clear slate to go to the city without having to worry about rushing to finish things up before I walk out the door. So I thought today what we would do, though, is I was going to work with the astrology cards today. I wanted to see what comes up for us. We have had a number of shifts this week. I mean, like I said, Neptune's moved into Aries. It was funny. Yesterday, the space weather stuff, Stefan Burns, like he pops up in my feed, and I happened to see he had this thing about the magnetic poles flipping. And I was like, what? That takes thousands of years. That's not happening. I mean, there is some change to the Earth's magnetic field, but, you know, that just seemed weird. And I got through about 2 minutes before I realized it was an April Fool's joke, because he had put up a paper that was published today about it. I'm like, that wouldn't happen in real life. I'm like, okay, this is just an April Fool's joke. So, yeah, it was kind of funny. It's like, oh, you almost had me there for a second going, what? Because everything just seems so weird right now. It seems possible, right? Like it just seems like, I don't know, if somebody just told you pigs were starting to fly, you'd be like, yeah, okay, you know, that seems totally reasonable for this time frame. So, yeah, it was just, it just kind of an interesting thing going on here. And, you know, but energetically, as we know, I'm looking forward to, I guess, what is it going to be next Monday that Mercury retrograde comes to an end. And then by the following Sunday, Venus retrograde comes to an end. So this is that mid-April point that we were kind of looking for to see, okay. And obviously after retrogrades, you have post-shadow periods. So things kind of got to warm up. Like Mars is now just finally warming up after being retrograde in Cancer in February, heading towards Leo. So yeah, there's a lot of energy that's just like starting to get moving again. And yeah, so I feel like we're moving towards a lot of stuff. So I thought maybe the astrology cards would be good. I haven't really been doing those in the last, well, actually, don't ask me what time. My concept of time is really poor right now. I think I said this yesterday, that I was telling my students, you know, have a nice weekend, and I'm like, it's Monday. It's like, is that wishful thinking or what? It's like, and they're probably looking at me like she's out of her mind. But anyway, they wouldn't be the first or last people to say that. Okay, so let's see what we've got for today. I just want to pull some cards for what we need to know collectively. And oh, this is interesting. Okay, so our first card is the air element. Okay, air element is obviously more general. It's not a specific sign. Sign in terms of the signs, it would be either Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. Would be our air element here. And so this is to do with communicating. And again, we were just talking about Mercury retrograde, and we have it in the environment of the fire element. Okay. Now, this is what's interesting here to me, is that we are moving into the era over the next year of air and fire, out of the eras of earth and water that have been dominated by those types of signs and that kind of astrology. We're going to have the majority of planets moving into fire signs. You know, Mars into Leo, Saturn into Aries, Neptune into Aries. And then you've got, well, Jupiter's currently in Gemini. I guess Jupiter's going to move into Cancer. That's going to be one of the same. Pluto's in Aquarius, right? We're going to be having a lot of planetary movement. Venus is going to move back into Aries. Mercury is going to move back into Aries. So we're going to have this fire and air heavy kind of dynamic coming up. So it's interesting that we've got both of these. But when I look at these in a reading, I tend to look at it as air and fire together with communication means there may be a need to, okay, well, I guess on the, we'll call it the negative side, there may be a need to control tempers, okay? There may be a need to not lash out at people. There may be a need to just also, I don't know, with those two things, that there's also the sense of things moving very, very fast. If you think about a fire, think about the fires like they had in LA and places like that, where the fires are fueled by wind, right? They're fueled by air. That when the Santa Ana winds come in, they cause everything to spread very rapidly, or even to jump and to go from like one neighborhood to another. I feel like there's almost an element of that there. Air and fire together says to me that you know, it's like the fire that's spreading very, very fast. Because air to me indicates movement. It's not, there's not this idea. We've been having, like, I guess what Joanne would call turtle medicine, right? We've been having this slow, steady, we've been seeing, you know, the little turtle in the Osho Zen deck, where it's been telling us, slow down, take your time, you know, don't rush into things. But now it's almost like, okay, I don't know. I suppose maybe it feels like everything's on fire. And again, that's not, whether that's positive or negative is going to depend. If you feel like something's needed to be burned down, then, you know, maybe this is a good omen. Or if you just feel like there's been non-action on something that you need action on, to see those two together suggests to me that things could start to happen very, very quickly. Like where there's been no movement, it's like you're sitting in traffic and then all of a sudden you're doing 80 miles an hour, right? It's like there could be just this sudden movement of things, is kind of what I feel here, and that we are seeing. Now, our third card, which is what we're not seeing right now, we have more air energy, and this is Libra energy, okay? So what does Libra have to do? Well, Libra has to do with balancing, okay? But Libra is also about connection. It's about relationships. So to me, there's like, here's your Mercury and here's your Venus, just to a certain degree, because Venus does rule Libra. And So there's this idea of, okay, well, first of all, just the whole idea of balance in that kind of a thing is important. Where are we going to find our pivot point? Where do we find our center? Where's our place where we can, as I've often said, where we can be still while everything else kind of runs frenetically around us? I think there's kind of a I don't want to call it a warning, but there's just kind of a caution, I suppose. I think warning is too strong of a word, but I think there's a caution that's saying, you want to be on balance. You want to retain your own center. I think of Joseph Campbell talking about, his wife was a dancer, and he talked a bit about how she was, how the dancer, when they, especially if you're talking about a ballerina like who goes up on point, when they stand on their toe and they can spin around on point, when they, pirouette, the idea is that their center has to be there. Or an athlete who is in their element, who's able to run, or someone who does track kind of things where they, throw javelins, or you do different things, or, any kind of sport, really. There's a certain element for you to be in the flow of it. You kind of have to be in your center as you're acting. You kind of have to try to be in your center. And I feel like Libra is pointing to that to some degree, like, finding where your pivot point is, finding where your center point is, so that, this can be a dance rather than, I don't know, just being chaotically dragged in a circle, which I think is always a possibility when things really start to heat up. And Libra also, though, again, being that there's an element that's seventh house. So there's always an element of partnership. Who is going to help us here? Who is, who is going to, who are our helpers? Who are the people who actually can help and can support us as well? Because sometimes I think part of this is the idea that we have to carry everything by ourselves, and maybe we don't have to do that. There's a sense here that, there may be those who are helping us, and it's not always the people that you think, right? We might assume, like, if somebody's married, they might assume that their spouse is going to be the one. And ideally, yeah, I mean, if you are in that kind of relationship, your spouse should be the one who's there, who's helping you out. It should not be a situation where you're carrying them as well as yourself. And again, I don't know that that's the situation for anybody here, but the idea is that if you may have helpers in your own partner in that sense. But if you're not in a partnership, or if your partner maybe is somebody who's maybe not quite so helpful, then you might want to be in a place where who else around you that you feel close enough to, who is willing to say, oh, hey, I can give you a hand with this. I can help you with this, or maybe we can do this thing together. Oftentimes, I think what's coming into my head right now is many hands make light work. So I don't know. I think there needs to be kind of a talk about collaboration. Where can people work together on things when they're trying to move towards the same kind of goals? Where can people help each other out rather than compete with each other? We talked a lot about competition yesterday, and about the way in which being competitive is not helpful. It's not. We can spend a lot of energy trying to race ahead of the pack, but we may be more at a time where, I know certainly collectively the energy, if you're going to be moving into a more feminine energy, and I'm going to talk about this at the Cotonia live stream this afternoon, because people do sometimes have a weird conception of what we mean by balancing with feminine energy. Some people assume that means, women are going to go back to submitting and being in the kitchen or something. And I'm like, no, you're completely misunderstanding the idea of what reincorporating the feminine or your feminine side is. Incorporating the feminine side is about community. It's not about doing it all by yourself. It's about who else is with you, who can help you. Okay. And that does kind of get into the idea of relationship. I think with Venus retrograde, even our ideas about relationship should not just be about what I think a lot of times, okay, alliances and friendships and things can be made. And I'm not saying everybody here does this, but sometimes you will know people, or maybe you know people in your life who make friends because they think there's like a strategic alliance there. Like, how is this friendship useful to me? And that's something you see a lot when you think about networking, right? Networking is like, oh, it's good to align myself with this person because they might be able to help me with something. And I mean, this is the way the business world works, right? We go out and you meet people, the person who takes you out to lunch because they're hoping, they can, you'll put in a good word for them somewhere or something. There's that kind of, that's kind of the gift giving thing, right? That's where, it's almost like I always said, that's the way the ancients dealt with their gods. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to do something nice for you. And so hopefully now, now that we're friends, we can, you can do something for me. But I don't know. I mean, when you're talking about moving from the place of the feminine, it's less about strategic relationships and more about just having, and in Aquarius, it's more about having compassion for humanity as a whole. And what can we do? And so there's a sense of building relationship. There's a lot about organic building of relationship, I think, lately. I know I've been talking about it a lot, but I don't feel like I'm talking about this in a vacuum. Like, I feel like there's this sense that we are looking to build relationship with others, but doing it organically. More like, okay, I'm in a situation, and making the decision there whether or not this, certain things are that you're going to involve yourself with or not. Where do you set your boundaries, and where do you just spontaneously help people, or where do we just reach out for other people with similar interests, so to lighten the load for everybody? You know what I mean? Like, is it more about service, or is it more about, is it strategic, or is it about service? Maybe that's the way to put it. Is it more strategic, or is it more about service? And again, I don't want to say that if you are, in certain businesses, you do form strategic alliances, right? If you work in sales, that's something that you do. That's kind of part of what you do. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do. But when it comes to more of our personal lives and our personal goals and things, there's both types of thinking, and they both can be useful at different times. But do we overemphasize the strategic over the service one? I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's another type of balancing act that we have to do. That's just kind of coming into my head. So, take from that what you will. Now, our advice card is the 12th house. Okay. Now, I don't know about you guys. I know that a lot of the astrology right now, what I'm seeing, seems to be affecting the 12th house. Okay. This is Pisces. Okay. 12th house is Pisces. We've got Mercury and Venus we're retrograding into Pisces. Venus is certainly retrograded into Pisces right now. Yeah, there seems to be a lot around the retrograde still here, and the energy around it. And it's also very Neptunian, right? And the card we have next to it is Aries. Okay, now Neptune's just moved into Aries. It's not a permanent move. It is going to retrograde back into Pisces later this year, but in 2026, it will, kind of like Pluto did with Aquarius, it will finally move into Aries, and will be there for about 14 years, I think they said. So we are seeing the planets starting to make these moves over the next couple of years. So if the advice is 12th house, generally the advice about that is go with the flow. Okay, it's like you have to kind of surrender to what is, to the forces that are there. So there's this idea of finding your pivot point, not seeing who your allies are, and also seeing maybe who you are in a position to help. Okay. And when I say, and again, position to help, obviously we all make our decisions about who we're going to help and who we're not going to help. And, certainly, if somebody wants to try to manipulate us into carrying their burden, then it's just kind of like, okay, no, yeah, sorry, mate, you got to kind of figure it out on your own. That's your piece. And, it's not about getting other people to carry our burdens for us. It's about, how do we just collectively lighten everybody's burdens? How do we collectively work together to make things easy? And I also thought about this with respect to what I was saying when I first came on about the sword of Damocles. I feel like there may be a sense when we have a lot of responsibility, okay, if we feel like we are carrying a lot of burdens that at least for the time being that we cannot drop. I think there may be a sense there of how do you lighten it for yourself? How do you take something that feels like a chore and make it into something that that you enjoy doing, that can be a meditation, or that's something that can that you can look forward to, rather than something you go, crap, this is on my list, I guess I got to get this done. There can be a sense of that when we feel a sense of urgency to meet certain timelines or to do certain things. So I don't know. I think this is part of trying to think differently about what's happening, about how things are shifting and changing, and what kind of burdens we're carrying now, and how we might deal with those differently. When I see a lot of fire energy like this, I almost feel like there's a burning down of something, because we are kind of, it's like, okay, this is gone. How are you going to rebuild it? How are you going to make it new? You know, the old structure was convenient, but now how are we going to, there may be a new and better way to do things, right? I think it's almost like necessity is the mother of invention. It kind of puts us in a place where we need to kind of make these decisions. And yeah, and with Aries as our outcome, Aries is first house energy, right? It is that new beginning. It's that new cycle. You've got the 12th house. That's the other aspect of it too. You've got the end of the cycle and the beginning of the cycle. So I think there's this sense here that, okay, there's a cycle ending, there's a cycle beginning. We're kind of moving into this air fire kind of dynamic, and we've got Libra right in the middle here. So there's this idea that we need to find balance. But I do think it's kind of a fact, and maybe this is evident to me, maybe more than a lot of people, because I do everything kind of by myself. Is that, there's you don't. I think a lot of times. And we feel that we must do things by ourselves, that if we ask other people to assist us, that we are, what's the right word? That we are, that we are, again, that we are trying to place our burden on them. Like, I can't burden that person with my stuff. And I'm thinking, well, you can help each other without it necessarily being burdening another person, right? We look at everybody, we flow with what people need, with people around us. And I think we can, there's a way in which people can share and can support each other without it being one person is like a vampire sucking the resources out of another. I don't think anybody wants to be that. And I think that's why we get into this space of, not being afraid to ask for help because you're afraid you're overburdening another person. Okay. I think there's a certain energy of that we could, that we can fall into, but again, I think this is saying, take another look at that. It's not necessarily, if you're working with people and you can both benefit from the relationship, if it lightens both of your loads, then that's a good thing. If that's something where, or a lot of times, you're there for, the person's there for you. And so you're there for a person, and kind of trying to flow with that as well, because, it just, well, that gets into the whole realm of the unexpected, doesn't it? Like, kind of expecting the unexpected, having a plan and getting your plan derailed. But sometimes it's like, okay, but if there's somebody who needs something right now, because I have had that. I've had situations where I'll have my plan, I'll be doing something, but then I'll get like a call from a friend who's just like, hey, there's something, going on right now. I really need to talk right now. And so you drop everything and you say, okay, well, what's happening? Tell me what's going on. And I'm okay with that, because it's like, that's the way in which we can meaningfully be there for people and meaningfully support people. And maybe the thing I'm working on is not as important as that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's this balancing act that's going on. But I think that kind of makes me think that Libra is also there to tell us, don't forget about relationship, right? Like a lot of times that may be the thing that's hidden from us. Who are the helpers? Who are the supporters? And oftentimes there's the sense of what you give, you also get back, right? So when you do reach out to people, you may find that trying to work through your to-do list or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish right now, that kind of being open to other people, you may find that there's help in unexpected places, or that that there are people whose load you can lighten. I always feel though that that's an intuitive thing. We have to kind of get out of being overly focused on what our plan is and just allow things to kind of flow as they are. And I don't know that it's impossible for me to kind of give an example of an outcome of that, but I have had situations where I've been kind of running from one thing to the next, and just randomly, for no reason, like people will show up at different places and go, oh, would you like me to do that for you? Oh, would you like me to do this? Would you like to? It's kind of a weird phenomena, and it can just sort of manifest itself if we just go with the flow of it. I don't know. I'm hoping this is making some sense, but I think it's like we're trying to move into a space where there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening fast. There's a lot that's burning down. We're in a new cycle. Something's coming to an end. And when you have 12th house energy, what the new thing is not clear. I mean, 12th house is the house of the soul. So of course, there's definitely the, trying to focus on what's good for your soul. But the 12th house is also about, it's also that place that can be very nebulous, where we have self-doubt, where we're like, where you can't necessarily see the way forward clearly, at least not with your eyes. This is where intuition comes in again. There's a lot here about connecting with feeling. I still say I think we're moving into Treta Yuga and not into Dwapara Yuga. But I don't know. I suppose there are probably more qualified astrologers that can make that decision. I'm just going to do a quick cartouche, and then I'm going to do our regular Osho Zen reading, just to kind of see if I can get a little bit more on what I'm seeing in the astrology cards today. Okay, so yeah, we're starting with Horus. Horus is this energy of healing. It's this energy of Horus does have to do with family sometimes. It can have to do with what we do creatively. Age of Horus, of course, this is the age of the child, right? But there's an energy here. I connect this very much to Leo energy, to how we're seen, what we're seen for. But again, there's also a strong family dynamic. There's a strong community dynamic to Horus. I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. And what we've got is Pyramid here. So there's a challenge, okay? There's a test that's going on. There's a feeling like we're going through some kind of ordeal, or something has not been solved yet, okay? And so, so when this comes up, there's definitely a sense that is a focus right now. One of the things I keep seeing in my own readings, and I know I said this all week, is kind of the keep your temper in check, like watch your emotions, because we may have a knee-jerk reaction to things, maybe because we're stressed out or certain things. And it's saying, well, hang on a moment, that reaction may be coming from, a frustration about having things not go exactly the way we wanted to in the order that we wanted to. And sometimes it's a sign that we just need to let go of something, right? We just need to say, okay, well, you know what? This is what it is right now. Let's go with the direction that it's going in, right? So Pyramid also has to do with things that will be solved with time. Okay, Pyramid has to do with there being an eventual resolution, but things just kind of feeling like an initiation or a test or an ordeal in the meantime. Now, the factor to be considered, here's our 12th house energy, our Pisces energy, Nephthys. Nephthys is like a little chalice. It's a vessel. And my readings make no sense to me recently, is what Sudha's saying. And that could well be that especially when we're in an analytical frame of mind. First of all, we got Mercury retrograde, so our analysis can be weird and kind of off, right? Like you can feel like you're looking at stuff and being like, I don't know. But also, I think sometimes when we're very invested in something, we can do a reading and be like, okay, what does this outcome mean? I haven't a clue. So, I can understand that. As our factor to be considered, though, is nepenthes. Nepenthes indicates that which we don't know about. When nepenthes comes up, it says, hey, something's hidden from you. And by the way, we're not telling you what it is, but something's hidden from you right now, and you're going to find out what it is. Okay? So it's that nebulous space of like, I don't know what the hell's going on. You know, it's that kind of energy, right? And where we're having to be put in that position, I mean, that's the test, like, right? That's our position of trust, of knowing that we are going to shine. We are going to be recognized. We are going to, this is the card of coming through a difficulty and going, oh, how did I get through all that? That's the kind of energy with Horus. And our advice card here is Anubis. Anubis says, we are being guided. Okay, Anubis is the guide. He's the guide for you with the underworld. Now, he's also the judge. There is an element of Anubis being the one who has to do with weighing the heart on the scale against a feather. So I feel like there's a sense of Anubis coming around, reminding us of business that's unfinished, okay, that we need to finish, or karma that we are, if you believe in karma, the idea that there's karmas that maybe we need to pay up or whatever, or to sort out and resolve. And, but also Anubis is a guide. Anubis is a guide, and it's like when we trust in that intuition, it's like it's not going to steer you wrong. This is a card of non-delusion. It's the opposite of the Seven of Cups. When Anubis shows up, it says, look, you're not a delusional person, okay? And so even though for a while you may feel like you have no freaking clue what's going on, but it's just basically saying through this foggy space, you have a guide, okay? And the outcome is vast. And it's kind of funny because it's saying, yeah, your intuition has to be your guide right now. And so this may be what the test is. You know, we may all kind of be saying like, yeah, I got to rely on my intuition. But we may be so mentally caught up in things that we're drowning that out. So that's kind of interesting. So let me do our last little reading here and see what we have. So what do we need to know for today, for this week, for April the 2nd? Okay, oh, interesting first card here. Okay, yeah, it's really funny how much Pisces energy has been in all of these readings today. There's at least one element of that in each of the readings we're doing. Well, our first card, though, is Four of Cups, which is turning in, okay? This kind of summarizes a lot of it, right? You have the person, remember what I said about finding your pivot point, finding your center, right? There's the good woman in the center, and here's all the voices around her. But these voices look more like, the faces around her look like ghosts, okay? These are the phantoms of thoughts that keep yelling at us and yelling in our ear and saying, you haven't done this, and have you taken care of that? And, you know, all of the things that you should be doing, right? Finding your center, finding like, whoa, let's get rid of the noise and find out what it is I really need to be doing and where I really need to be focusing my energy. Now, the inner feeling of which we're unaware is interesting. It's friendliness. It's the Two of Cups. So that's interesting because we had Libra, remember, and Libra actually showed up in the point of what we're not seeing. Two of Cups is showing up in the point of what we're not seeing. Interesting, right? So to me, this card specifically does have to do with connection. I think there is a desire to connect with people, even if we feel like we want everybody to leave us alone. There may be a desire for connection that we're not entirely seeing. And remember, like I said with the Two of Cups, this card's called friendliness. It's not called love or romance, or, I mean, although Two of Cups can mean that. Maybe there is an impulse towards somebody. Maybe there is somebody who's looking for a partnership, or maybe wants, you know, I don't know. There may be some element of partnership where you want to have a connection, maybe where there isn't one. But there's definitely this sense inside of friendliness. Like I think we are looking to connect with people unconsciously, in spite of the fact that we may, yeah, that's just kind of what I feel like, the sense of everybody bugger off. I mean, it's kind of like, no, actually, I think there is a desire to connect. And I think perhaps the way in which things are shifting for us are setting us up to have more connection with people, right? To have us um, have more involvement. And a Two of Cups, it's more involvement from the heart space, right? This is Cups energy. This is water. So we have a desire to connect in a meaningful way, not like I was saying, the service versus the strategic, right? We don't want it to just be about this will be a beneficial relationship to me. It's okay, if I'm going to compare it to a marriage, it's the idea of marrying for love versus marrying for because that person has a lot of money. Okay. When we talk about strategic alliances, it can be that kind of a thing. The external feeling of which we are aware is the Empress. Okay, we have this card of creativity. And again, to me, that's almost like the Horus energy in that deck, even though astrologically they're different. Yeah, there is this idea of what you are creating and what you are planting the seeds for right now. And what you are planting the seeds for is something that I think internally we know is going to benefit from the involvement of others, or just maybe we're just reaching out and we want to connect with others, maybe in a world, in a space where we feel like caring for people is not a thing right now. I mean, especially if we're told that, empathy is a bad thing and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe internally on a more collective level, we want to feel that there's people out there that care about us and respect us and care about what we're doing, right? But again, and I don't know, maybe that's the problem. Maybe there's a lot of people who do reach out for connection because they don't have it. And, and again, the question is where does that fall for us? How does that work? So I don't know. We're planting the seeds for something here. And yeah, we got another two. We've got the Two of Swords. Okay, here's the schizophrenia card again. Being stuck between the head and the heart. That's exactly what I mean about strategic versus service. It's the idea of, what do I think logically, sensibly, in terms of my goals or where I'm going makes sense versus what does my heart want? And it's kind of like, okay, you need to take that leap where we just say, you know what? We just need to let whatever's going to happen. The more and more I think about the Two of Swords, I almost feel like it's like, okay, you just have to move in a direction and see what happens. And even if it's the wrong direction, you'll have something that'll help you correct course rather quickly. So yeah, so there's this idea of so when we say to jump, it's just kind of like pick it. Mango, which I pulled the Two of Swords twice the other day. Yeah, interesting, right? Like you're in this impasse, this place of threshold. And it's like, yeah, what are we? It's almost like saying, just, make a move, make any move, do what occurs to you, right? And our outcome, here's more of our Pisces energy, is we have the Seven of Cups, which they call the card of projection here. So yeah, there could be this, we talked about the Hall of Mirrors effect the other day, where we're constantly reflecting back and forth to each other. So sometimes what we're seeing in other people that frustrate us are actually something that's in us. But conversely, other people could be looking at us in a certain way that just reflects their frustrations, right? It's a thing that happens. It's not a bad or an evil thing. It's just something we have to be aware that humans do, because you have no choice. It's the same thing I said. Like, I'm looking at myself in the camera right now, or if I look at myself in a mirror, that's the only way I see myself. I cannot take all those things away and see what my physical body looks like. I can find out in other ways. I can, if you think about the way a blind person might have other ways of perceiving different things. But most of the time when we perceive, we're doing this kind of unconscious mirror thing that's going on. But the Seven of Cups also has to do with possibilities. And the question then becomes, which possibilities are real? That gets back to our nebulous Piscean energy that's like, I don't know. So I don't know. I don't feel like this is telling you so much about projections as it is saying, be open to possibilities right now, even if a possibility later proves to be delusional. I don't know. I just think it's better to move towards the heart space and risk making an error. Okay. More and more, okay, we're almost done here with the live stream because we're almost 8:15, but I don't know. I feel like lately, as I'm doing things, there's such a concern and a worry. This is very sixth house about doing there's such a worry about doing things perfectly or what people are going to think about things that is literally just a point where I'm like, I just don't, whatever. We're going to do whatever, and it's going to have to be good enough. We do our best. We apply ourselves and we do our best, but sometimes the fact that something is imperfect is part of what makes it perfect. Okay. So yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting. What's more authentic, even if it doesn't, even if people in the outside world say, oh, well, maybe I think that could be better. Well, you know what? Then yeah, sure, maybe somebody could make it better, but this is the way I've made it, and I'm happy with it. So I don't know, some things to think about today. This is kind of what's come up in the readings. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Those who want to join me for the Katonia live stream, I have to go schedule that, but I will be on at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, from 3 to 4 on the Katonia podcast channel. So that's youtube.com/@Katonia, CHTHONIA podcast, one word. And that will be at 3 o'clock. And that will be a different conversation about the feminine and the dark feminine, which is the subject of that channel. All right, everybody have a great Wednesday, and I will be back on tomorrow morning. So take care. Have a good night or good afternoon. See, I don't know what time it is anymore. My sense of time is gone. Have a good day.